Johann Sebastian Bach, arguably the greatest musician who ever lived. The expanse of Bach's works are profound, and I've only scratched the surface of his music, and I could tell you it would take me probably a couple of lifetimes to digest what I could from it. And I've had people say to me that they're a little trepidatious about getting into classical music in general. And I think it has a reputation of being complex, which it is, difficult to play, which it is, and maybe a little stuffy, which at times it can be. But that being said, there's so much information to learn, even if you're not going to be a devotee of classical music. And I'm certainly no purist, but I do enjoy getting what I can from some pieces. And we're going to look at one of those pieces today. And this is what we call the Prelude in C. So Bach wrote an entire study of keyboard works called the Well-Tempered Clavier. And this is the first piece in that book. And it's also the easiest. It's probably the most accessible piece of music Bach ever wrote. And but it still has such an amazing harmonic concept and sort of voyage through the piece. We'll take a look at it today. Now, one of the things I know from my experience teaching, that some of my students are reluctant to get into classical studies because of the reading aspect of it. And especially piano classical music is probably because of the two-hand aspect of it, and there's always some kind of contrapuntal motion going on. It is probably the most difficult music to read. So that can be tough. But this piece in particular, it's really not. It's pretty simple when you get the idea of it. First of all, there's virtually no rhythmic complexity to it. I mean, if you look at it, this looks like it would be pretty difficult, right? But it's not. It's a simple rhythmic concept, and all it is that you start out with these arpeggios, right? It's a 5-note arpeggio, and it's played like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you basically have 8 notes in a grouping, okay? These are 16th notes, and so you would double that to make it an even 16 notes for a measure. So like this. And that's the rhythmic pattern for pretty much the entire piece. All you do from there on in is you're changing the harmonies of what the chord structure is. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. Okay, as it's named, Prelude in C. We're in the key of C major, but boy, we'll be moving around all over the place. So let's see how this harmony has affected our modern day music. Okay, C major. D minor 7. Now, right off the bat, okay, so that's a 2-7 chord. That's jazz harmony right there, okay? G7. C major 7. C major. So right off the bat, we've got a typical jazz turnaround of D minor 7, G7, C. Just in arpeggios, right? And it's a beautiful melodic structure and all, but that's pretty simple, isn't it? Okay, so that's our first 4-measure phrase. In the 5th measure, we're going to go to the relative minor of C, which is A minor. Now we're going to go to a D7. Now, okay, A minor to D7, what's that? That's a 2-5 in the key of G, right? So, but we got there, the A minor is the relative minor of C, yeah? So, okay. And then we did get to G. So that's the next 4-measure phrase. So we had 1, 2, 5, 1, key of C, relative minor of C, which became 2, 5, 1, a 5th away from C. We're 2, 5, 1 in G. Okay. Now after we do that, we're going to return to C major. So we left off on the G. Now look at that. That's a C major 7. B, C, E, G, C. Now look at this. That's one of the most dissonant intervals you can have. That's called a flat 9. So I have a B on the bottom. 8 notes away is an octave B, but half step above, that's that C. Sounds terrible, right? However, look at it in the context of this chord. Beautiful, right? Okay, so we're back to the key of C now. All we do is move one note from the B that I had here down to A, and now we're on A minor 7. Right? So that 4-measure phrase coming up, the first 2 measures, we had the 1 major 7 chord, then the relative minor 6 minor 7 chord, right? Now that's a D7 chord, right? So we had the A minor 7, here's a D7, it's a 2-5. Are we going to go to G again? Yes, we are. So that's the first 12 measures of the piece, and you see how it's so logical, right? It was just 2 5s, but it went in a circular sort of way, and it took us right back. It took us on a little trip, and then we came right back to C major in the end. Now we're on G, and this is where, okay, now this piece is 3 pages long. That was the first page. All right, 2 more to go. So when we get to the second page, now we're starting to get into more harmonic complexity. So we had left off on the G. Okay, so now we're changing from G major to G diminished. Okay, what does that mean? Real quick, G major is GBD, G diminished is G, B flat, D flat. If you add the 7th to it, G diminished 7th is G, B flat, D flat. It's an E note, but in classical theory, you would have to really label that as F flat. Now, in the sheet music, it is written as E. It's just so much easier to do that. And I would always just think of this as an E. But if you were taking a music theory test, they'd tell you had to do that as F flat. All right, so anyway, that's the chord. And that's we went from G, and that move right there from the major chord to the diminished chord influenced so many of the American songbook writers like George Gershwin and so on and so forth. That type of move is in jazz quite a bit. So anyway, we're on the G diminished. And now we've arrived at D minor, but it has an F in the bottom. You could actually also think of this chord as an F6 chord, okay? F, A, D, right? That's the first inversion of a D minor, but it's also F6 if you put an F as the root note, okay? And the reason why you could think about it that way is what follows it next, is that now we're going to get an F diminished chord. Okay, so like we just did with the G, we went from G major to G diminished 7. You could think of this as D or F6 to F diminished. From there, we're going back to C major now, but it's a first inversion. It's C over E. And so you see, after some of this harmonic complexity, we're back home again. So I'll take it from the G, G diminished, F6, F diminished, C. That's a beautiful cadence right there. Okay, so once we've gone from there, watch what we do now. We're going to keep that E on the bottom, and we're going to go to an F major 7. It's the same type of chord voicing we did here when we did C major 7, but now we're up a fourth to F major 7. And just like we did before, going from C major 7 to A minor 7, it's relative minor. We're going to do the same move now here. F major 7, D minor 7. All right, so we did 1/6 in the key of F. And now we're going to keep going through the circle. We're going to go to a G7. Dominant 7 chord, where does that usually go? That's right, to 1. Back to C major again. And now, one of the other things though is this. Notice how we started up here, right? And the whole time we've been sort of slowly moving down in register. So now we're here, right? This is C, E, G, C, E. By now, we're at C, E, G, C, E, an octave lower. Okay? You have to understand, from what I know and have read about Bach, his brain was so developed. This is all calculated out. This is not random. He didn't just happen upon this by accident. This is all like mathematical perfection, within the beauty of music. Okay, let's keep going. So we've landed on C. Now we're going to go to a C7. That's a dominant 7th chord. Where does that go usually? To a 1. 1 from C7 is what? F major 7. And it's pretty unique that he's emphasizing major 7s in this piece, and that wasn't really common in the style of music at that particular time. So something to think about. Okay, F major 7. Up a half step to F sharp diminished 7. So let's listen to that move again from F, F sharp, and now this. All right, this is probably the most unique chord in the piece, and you can label it a few different ways. The root note is A flat. Then you have a sixth interval of F. Then you have flat 5 from F, B natural. But then you have a C. So at first, that's kind of spelling out an A flat diminished chord. But then you also have the natural third of A flat in there. And then there's a D note. So if I did this, okay, clearly that's an A flat diminished chord. It's got the C note in it too. So I think that's just a sort of melodic passing tone within the arpeggio of A flat diminished. And now look how it resolves. A half step lower to G, and we're going to have a G7 chord. And now this is one of my favorite moves in the whole piece. G7, dominant 7, it's going to go to C, right? But he keeps the G on the bottom, and it becomes C over G. I love that chord voicing, that sound of G, E, G, C, E. It's just so rich. So let's take it from that A flat diminished again. G7, C over G. Okay. Now we're going to get some interesting harmony here. This is some modern stuff. We're going to have some sus chords. So we're going to start on G, sus 4. So the G, D, G, C, F. Fourth voicings, right? Okay. To G7. I think we're going to go to C major again. But no, here's the surprise chord. Okay, so that is like an E flat diminished over G. Now that's counterintuitive because there's no G in the E flat diminished chord, right? But you see, like we did before with the A flat diminished, where he included the natural third as well as the flat third, same thing here. He's got the diminished chord, E flat, A, C, G flat, over G, over the natural third. And back to C over G. And you see how that G flat, oh man, that's, all right, we're almost done. We're at the home stretch now. We're going to repeat the phrase of G sus 4, G7, and now check this out. He fakes this out. He goes to C, but he makes it a C7. So like you're thinking the resolve's coming. You think it might be, right? But it's not. He delays the resolution. So you're like, what's going to happen now? And now it's a 5 chord, right? C7. It's going to go to an F, but it's an F over C. And now he breaks the rhythmic pattern and he does this phrase. Almost home. We're going to have a G7 chord, right? but watch how we do it. So it's a G7 over C, and not only that, but the C on the bottom, right? You have this, and then the major 7, the B, and then up from where we started in the right hand. Well, I hope you enjoyed that breakdown. If you did, please consider subscribing to my channel for more videos like this to come. Thank you for watching.